Hey, dear Starshines, Christina here. Welcome to the Lunchtime Chats. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We'll give everybody a moment to get on board. In the meantime, for those of you listening to the recording, for those of you who are new, my name is Christina and I'm an acceleration expert. And we are here to talk about those topics and issues that are significant to us starseeds, way showers, and new paradigm visionaries, where we have capacities and abilities that are not embraced by our larger human family. Therefore, the types of challenges we face and the way we approach them are very unique to us. And I am here to give, to the best of my ability, a liberated perspective on those challenges. So welcome, 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 everybody. I am so glad to have you here to join the conversation. Now, if you want to be a part of the topics, the cultivation of the conversations and topics that I talk about in these chats, I encourage you to check us out on social media. We have a Telegram group, a really cool Telegram group called Multidimensional Human. And that is, it's called the Multidimensional Human Chat. Okay, and that's where you can find that. And then for those of you who are still working the Facebook game, there is a group in there called Rise of the Multidimensional Human. And that's another place where I check out and these topics get developed. So if you want to be a participant in how these conversations develop, go ahead and visit one of those social media outlets and chime in, post, and share, and I'll join in as appropriate. Now, I don't necessarily have time to engage like a lot with typing things out, but I will like and heart and things so people know that I'm reading the conversation. I'm still in the conversation, though I'm maybe not able to fully contribute into it. And you can also ask direct questions there as well if you wish. So this lunchtime chats is really me offering support for us starseeds and way showers, because we're in these challenging times and we are being called to step up in much bigger ways than we've existed before. And I feel like that once we have clarity and once we shift our perspective in such a way where we have more of a free, liberated type relationship to the challenge in front of us, then we're all that much more empowered to step into our way showership in the way that we feel called. So, so that's why I'm doing that. So the one of the things that I want to talk about, if you guys got to check out that little video clip that I did earlier this week, it was around, are my teachings, are the teachings that I'm learning from a particular teacher, A, B, or C, are they demonic? Are they corrupt? And if they are, what should I do about them? That kind of thing. And just to summarize what I said in that video is pretty much, all teachings on this planet have been incepted, every single one, not without exception. And I know that's difficult for a lot of people to accept because, our world, a lot of people's worldview is that, humanity began 5,000 years ago. And the fact is, according to many records, indigenous records on this planet, life has been happening. Humans have been happening on this planet for much longer than that. The bone, for example, in Tibet, these are the indigenous of the Tibetan mountains. They have story and medicine that goes back more than 45,000 years. They actually have an herbal. It's like their sacred herb, and it's made of a bunch of things. But as you guys know, with homeopathy, perhaps you know this, that when you make things, when you make batches of things on a yearly basis to continue the connection to the history, to the root, the ancestry, so to speak, of that herbal wisdom, there's a handful of the old batch goes into the new batch. And the herbal elixir that they offer people goes back more than 45,000 years. Okay, that blows all historical record out of the water. Every timeline that you see out there, it just blows it out of the water. Okay, so just to give you an idea of just how incepted our perceptions of who we are. It didn't start with the Bible. It didn't start with the Garden of Eden. It's much, much, much older than that. And some might think that the first human civilization maybe was Atlantis or Lemuria, which was, arguably the last final cataclysm collapse of Atlantis was roughly 10,000 years ago, but it was a civilization that existed for many tens of thousands of years. So that would put us back around 50,000 years ago, right? So, but humans existed long even before that. There are stellar records from star elders that talk about seedings, different seedings of humanity. There's been 5 different seedings of humanity, each one several 100,000 years apart from each other. Okay, so that means that actually takes us back to the possibility of humans existing on this planet at the time of the dinosaurs, right? The humans aren't supposed to exist back then, but according to stellar records, it's a possibility. It's definitely a possibility. Now, maybe those are 2 different timelines in history. That could be too, right? Once you start thinking multidimensionally, the linear concept of a timeline does not apply, right? So so the inception's been going on for a very, very long time, and the inception has impacted our very core beliefs about ourselves, the very core values and principles and beliefs that we have about ourselves. And this is why I say all teachings across the board without exception have been incepted. Now, it might seem unfair that that's so, but to me, it's completely poetic, and I think it's completely appropriate. And let me share my view on that, on why. Okay, so you guys, we know about these star seeds coming to the planet and stuff like this, and some people have the idea or perception that the star seeds are new to this planet, right? They're new to coming to this realm, but at the same time, they seem to have a lot of memory that goes way back throughout antiquity. And the reason why this is so, in my perception, I only can speak from my own experience as a starseed, is that the quantum that I was born here with has grown. All right, so I was born here with a particular soul signature, and that soul signature was one that had a lot of history, old soul, been on this planet for a long, long, long time, millions of years even. I have memories that go back even back to primordial Earth. But how can I be a star seed where it's a new energy signature in the here and now in this realm? I can tell you why. It's because of the quantum I have recovered of myself. Okay, this, you can also call this soul retrieval. It started off as soul retrievals, actually, is going to the underworlds, getting to to as many of the traumatic events that I can trace in my history, where there were soul shatterings, where there was soul loss, where there was contracts, where, all these different things that compound a fracturing, right? And in that time, in the old paradigm, we would travel to the underworlds to retrieve these soul pieces. Sometimes you would travel to the places in between in the astral to get them, but most of the time it was in the underworlds, which is all about what's underneath us, what's behind us, the history, okay? But there was a point in time where that all shifted, where all of a sudden I am unwinding blind spots, I'm unwinding things, and I'm going off planet. I'm going to other planets. I'm going to other star systems. I'm going to other galaxies and even universes to retrieve quantum. You see? And because of all of that retrieval and reintegration, then I reach the encodements inside of me get activated, and now I'm carrying the signature of a star seed, or star shine, as I like to say, because I don't really feel like I'm a seed anymore. It definitely feels like it's the star shine, right? And I think many of you probably are in that space too. It's like no longer a seed. That seed is germinated and it's growing. The change, the quantum shift of my reality is in the process of happening, which means it's no longer a seed. It's a shine, right? So because of that process of my life walk, that is why so much of me here as that intergalactic, interstellar, intercosmic being does seem like it's on this planet for the first time, in this realm for the first time. It's because there was a sliver of me that has been incarnating over and over and over again, through a narrow aperture. And then that aperture got much bigger and more of my quantum can stream in. And now I'm even more embodied light than I was before when I was born. So many of you, I'm curious to hear if many of you can also identify with a particular journey, how I'm saying it. Okay. So it's because of this shift this quantum shift that's happening within so many of us. This is why there's that paradox of being an old soul, but also brand new to this realm. You see? But what's important is that we integrate it all. We make it all unified and congruent within ourselves. Now, let's get back to why it's so pathetic, why it's so poetic that that we are going through these ancient teachings, these mystery school teachings that are incepted. The reason why, because remember that old soul piece, many of us, we've played all sides of the fence. We have been the perpetrator. We've been the inceptor as much as we are the victim of that. Played the victim as much as we played the hero. I mean, we played every side of the coin here. So those of us who played all the different sides of the coin here and perhaps participated in the inception of these mystery school teachings, now that we're awake on a much bigger level, we are encoded. See, that piece that maybe we would call karmic has now been activated and now becomes a key to unlocking the mechanism of the inception, a key to unlocking the mechanism that truncated or corrupted a particular teaching. You see what I mean? So it's all beautifully folding out before us. There is no wrong in this. It's more about discovery. The more we discover and awaken and realize, the more these pieces that have been locked up get the keys put in them and they open up. And now more and more possibilities, more and more levels of consciousness or fields of consciousness, let's say like that, are open now and accessible to even more people. For example, many of you guys have connections with Christos Sophia dragon energy, right? You have a part of that. Now, chances are you're a holder of that type of frequency, of that template, let's say, because you were also the holder of the one that anchored the corrupted version of that template. Okay? And now you're here to have it come full circle. And full circle is the one that has done the corrupting is now undoing the corruption, is now undoing the inception. And because you are the one with the authority to do it, because you were the one who did it in the first place. Okay? We are all unraveling these dramas. We are all unraveling these roles that we've played in the past that contributed to the falling of the veils, the separation of the worlds. And now we're on this new age, this new paradigm experience where we are waking up to the unification of these worlds. Hence why the Fae realm is so in our face right now, why Sasquatch is so in our face right now, why exo-species and exo-politics is in our face right now, is because these realms for a long, long time have been considered separate from our reality. But really what's happened is that they were purposely separated out of our reality. And now it's time to bring it all together again. Now it's time to weave it all back into one sacred fabric, as the kiddo would say. Now you guys know that I was a student of the kiddo for many, many years. And they brought in the transmissions for what they called the new human. Okay? So I can say that maybe I wasn't born with all the encodements, but I was born with the directive of discovering those encodements, of awakening any means necessary, in which case is exactly what unfolded in my life. The right teachers came, the teachers in my dream time are coming. It was like it was coming from me in all angles. I feel like I was rather dense when I was young because, I had no choice but to really shut down my sensitivity because of my, the family dynamics and the toxicity of what it is to grow up in the military and to grow up in the 70s, So even though all that adversity happened, the prime directive of my purpose for being here still unfolded. Was it difficult? Yes. Did it feel like I wasn't going to be able to make it sometimes? Yes. Okay. But no matter how difficult and how many times I visited those places where I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to make it. I don't have what it takes. I just want to check out now. It doesn't matter. Even though I visited all those places over and over again, here I am. Right? So it's not about the quality of the journey or, how enjoyable or not enjoyable it was. It's the fact that you've arrived. It's the fact that you're getting here. It's the fact that you're activating those encodements and they are now integrating and becoming alive inside of you. So it doesn't matter that all these teachings are incepted. It doesn't matter at all, because as these encodements activate, your compass gets sharper and sharper and sharper, and you are putting one foot in front of the other, and each foot, whether our ego driver is aware of it or not, is guided. Each foot is guided. So I've had teachers that I thought were light that turned out to be dark. That happened a lot, including my some of the work that I did with the kiddo. There were sorcerers in that community. There were people that were definitely interested in power over dynamics. They would go through all these different rites and initiations, and one of the rites and initiations that you got was them locking up your mesa so you couldn't abuse power with it, right? Because they were teaching us really powerful techniques, and there was sorcery used to ensure that we wouldn't use sorcery. You can see the irony in that, right? So it's in every direction. It's not that there's any place that it doesn't exist. But the fact is, I was a dumbass, and I really didn't understand the power of the teachings that I was getting at the time. I understood what I understood at the time, and I knew absolutely I needed to be there at the time, but I didn't get the bigger picture of what these teachings were until way later. It wasn't until I digested those encodements fully and planted them in my inner garden, and they had several years, several seasons to grow. Not until they started growing within me and proliferating like that did it really start to sink in what these teachings are and the power of the medicine that I just learned. Okay, so it takes time, and these the dark and the light working together is that unit, that working with that without feeling threatened, getting over the fear of it, getting over the judgment, getting over the need for good, bad, right, or wrong, getting over the need for the light to triumph over the dark, or vice versa, right? All of that is a learning experience. All of that is a wisdom that can be known but not told. You only can learn that through experience. Someone can't tell you, because what will happen, someone will tell you, and then you're going to remember their words, and you're going to refer to what another person told you instead of your own inner knowing. You see? So it doesn't work if someone tells you. You have to discover it yourself. And once you do, right, then it's a wisdom that you know. You know it. Let me know if this rain is really loud. This is why I'm under the canopy, because my instincts told me to stay under the canopy today. So it's kind of loud. Let me know if it's disrupting the sound. And that is the basis of everything that I do now, because I know the value of that wisdom that could be known but not told. And this is what we do in the Academy in lots of different directions, in many ways. Even in our core curriculum, you're learning techniques, but there's wisdom in there, there's experiences in there that we don't tell you about. You have to discover it on your own, because once you discover it on your own, you can own it. It is yours. It's not something that you feel like you're, if you share it with somebody or teach it to somebody, you're stealing it from somewhere. You're not. It's yours. It's your wisdom you uncovered. It's your wisdom to share. So even in our core curriculum, we apply that wisdom that could be known but not told. So this is the plight of the Starseeds, is to get out of that old paradigm of teacher-student, getting out of the old paradigm of good, bad, right, or wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. Getting out of the paradigm of this is the right way and what you're doing is the wrong way. Yeah, we're stepping out of all of that, because each of us have a unique path that led to this moment, and each of us have a unique path that carries us into the new paradigm realities. Okay, it's unique for all of us. So cookie cutter classes might get us going, but that's not what's going to get us beyond into our own way of showership, into our own inner trusting our own inner teacher. So, so this is a really significant facet, and it's expressed in so many different ways. I'm seeing now like multiple generations of indigo / starseeds working together now, working together in very different forms. Like the way they work in their own particular style is very different from each other, but somehow we're able to find the strength in what unifies all those different teachings. It's not about them being different. It's about the strength that comes forward from the unification, what they all have in common. Okay. And that's pretty much what I have to say about that. Let me guys know. You guys let me know if this is making sense the way I'm saying it. There's a few other things that I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about the current energies of the equinox. Happy equinox, everybody. For those of you that don't know, equinox is the day where night and day are equal. They're both 12 hours long. That's why it's called equinox. And this is the fall equinox. That means from this day forward, the days will begin to get shorter. I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. From this day forward, the nights will become longer than the days. The nights will become longer than the days, and this is leading us up into the solstice. The reason why this is important and why I want to mention this to you guys is because this is a very potent time. There are solar doorways and power points that include the energy lines of the earth that are wide open during this time. So this is a good time to do grid work. This is a good time to do deep shadow work. It's a good time to, embrace and integrate all the hard work that you've been doing over the season of the light since the solstice. Because these doorways these portals are open, and there are no veils anymore between us. So spending time in meditation and communing with your inner beloved would be a good practice. Many of us in the academy are doing a lot of womb space healing. We're going into the process of reclamation of our sacred womb space and the stargate in the womb space. So things like this. This is a really potent time to be focusing on that kind of work because of the time that it is right now. Thank you, Joanne, for responding. Joanne says the teacher-student relationship is one of mutual reciprocity. Yes. And actually, I'm even going beyond that to say that there's a transcendence of the teacher-student. It's more of we're in this together. We're a team. There's a teamwork happening. And it's not about the one with most experience and the most knowledge is there with the one to share with the teachings to share. A lot of times it's about holding space so the wisdom teachings can come out of the starseed, that can come out through the ones that maybe consider themselves the students. Because these downloads, these translations of, say, galactic commandership, Pegasus commandership, whatever the different nesting dolls of commands are, they are in certain people in an intact way. So it doesn't matter what how much training they had or not. It's the facilitator or teacher would be the one who creates the space in such a way where that student, that person that's considering them the student or whatever, can tap into that level of themselves and share it. And in that way, this is that new relationship of docent. So because it's the hierarchy is ending. It's more about a web, a spider web, a great, magnificent web that weaves us all together and connects us. So the slightest movement over here impacts those in the same web over here. We are working together. Yes. Thank you for that. Well, hello, dear sister Carol and Beverly and Laurel. Good to see you guys. Aloha, Joanne. Aloha, Shanu. Thank you for being here. All right. Let me keep going down this line here. So these new paradigm ways, they're constantly being discovered and revealed. And there is some basic foundation pieces, like what dear sister Joanne's talking about what a teacher-student relationship looks like when it's in reciprocity, when it's in a harmony. And my piece is that that's even changing into a whole nother piece where any kind of sense of hierarchy is now collapsing, and it's now turning into a web. And you maybe even call that holographic. It's turning holographic, which means the any one speck within the hologram contains all the information of the whole hologram. So that means, as say, like when I'm in flow, if I'm in a flow state teaching or what I call dispensating something, everybody else is also in that same field downloading it as well. I just happen to be the one giving it a translation, giving it words. I'm translating it into a linear language, but everybody is in the field absorbing the wisdom, absorbing the teachings for themselves as a transmission. So in this way, being in a learning situation, when it shifts to more of a holographic relationship, I feel like that's that new paradigm, that next step towards the new paradigm way. All right. Dear Sister Joanne goes on to say, and the teacher is able to receive greater self-awareness and gain from wisdom of the student. Age becomes irrelevant. Yeah, age and experience becomes irrelevant. I can see that. Yeah, there's young ones that come into my work, even as private consults, and they're just these amazing creatures, really amazing beings that have a lot of these fields already open. They just need a little translation to help it click inside the head, so the mind can understand. And as soon as that happens, they're launched, they're skyrocketing, which is really cool. And when I see this, it makes me very, very positive and optimistic about these changes that we're in. There's times when I feel like it's really happening. It's happening so full on right now, which is a welcome feeling, because there are also times where I go to, oh man, we're totally fucked, to, oh, this is all a miracle, oh, we're totally screwed. It goes back and forth. And I have to say that the pendulum has been swinging less extremely lately, and I feel like that's because so many of us are doing this work. So how many of you have had that guidance? How many of you have had that guidance that you are not in this alone? How many of you had that guidance where you're not alone? And maybe that, because that statement is a holographic statement, because that statement has so many meanings, what it meant at the time perhaps nourished you, perhaps comforted you, perhaps opened you up to something, right? But each time that statement is spoken, there's more and more meanings developing out of that. And recently, what opened up maybe a few weeks ago, a month ago, a couple months, I don't know, all time all runs together for me. But recently what I'm realizing is that the burden of change, like the personal change we need to make inside of ourselves, as well as the external, is not all up to us. We are not alone in doing it. And the reason why is because so many people in human form and in the Dreamtime invisible realms are working on our behalf. They are working in the same direction we are working. So say we're having a bad day, we get tired, and we're just like so done with constantly, moving us forward in different ways, breaking through. It's like, okay, this week I'm tired, I just want to break. It's okay, we can take a break, because the work does not stop, it continues. Other people are doing it. Other people that have connections to those same pieces are doing it. So when we have our rest, we have our respite, and we're ready to jump back into it, we can, and we're even jumping back into it in a different place than where we left it. You see what I mean? So, and it's because of all the other beings, all the other humans, incarnated and not, that are doing their work. It's all connecting together. All this grid work that people are doing, this is all impacting, lifting us all up. So we're not in it alone, in the sense that we're not the only one that brings the change to within ourselves. We're not the only one. There's many, many beings supporting and colluding with us waking up to ourselves. You see what I mean? All right, dear sister Felicia, if I have that right, she says, would you say that these new energies are creating health problems for some? Oh, yeah, yes. Actually, I just had a call from a starshine this morning about that. Yes, yes, and here's why. All right, so we have a lot of density inside of us, and the density is, they're anchored in subconscious belief systems that we get inherited from our ancestors, past life and ancestral trauma, PTSD. We have all this density inside of us, and our own personal belief systems that we have of what's good and what's right and what's light and what's dark, and pretty much our relationship to the universe. We have certain conclusions and beliefs that we have about ourselves that are rigid. Okay. And that rigidity does eventually develop into pain. It does develop into illness when it's not in alignment with the truth of who we are. So this is why those health crises, so many of us on our awakening journey, as part of our awakening journey, was dealing with the health crisis. The real common ones I've seen is fibromyalgia, heart attack, rheumatoid arthritis, and what's the other one? Oh, out of control allergies, where you're just allergic to everything under the sun. Those are the big ones. Those are the big ones that I see commonly within people that are in the waking up process. They're in this health crisis that they need to find healing for. And in the path of finding that healing, the holistic path of healing, they empower themselves and they wake up to what they need to wake up to. I have an example of something for me. As I was coming more and more online, the aspects of my ego driver were not aligned with these other pieces of me that were being retrieved. And that was manifesting as frozen shoulder syndrome. Now, frozen shoulder syndrome, I don't know if you guys know, they don't know what causes it. Modern medicine does not know what causes it. Okay. But, and sometimes I think the ratio is like 30% of the problem they can fix with surgery. So like 30% success rate, but I dealt with it with energy medicine. I dealt with it with cracking aspects, hard shells of my ego driver. That's how I dealt with it. And it took about a year and a half. And going through that journey, along with getting regular body work and stuff like that, I healed my frozen shoulder syndrome. So it's because my ego driver, those structures, those internal subconscious structures inside, were not in alignment with all this quantum that was getting retrieved for me and being reintegrated. And that was resulting in health problems within my biosuit. This happens a lot. And especially right now, because it's accelerating, the level of quantum that's coming back for us is accelerating, tenfold. And I have a feeling it's going to be 1,000-fold by the time we hit the winter time. So a lot of the density feels like pain as it moves. It's inflammation, or it feels like the flu. Like a dear starshine that called me this morning, she's like, I'm not doing good. I don't feel good. I feel like I'm coming down with it, but I don't think, I'm coming down with something like the flu, but I know I'm not sick, and it's because of all that density. Our body, it has to move out. It has to move through our body. And if we let it, if we can, help, if we can align ourselves and do the self-care that we need for all that stuff to move through, then the sick time is going to pass more quickly. But if we stay, if we're, not able to do that and we're fighting it, like we really want to believe that we're a victim of something, or really want to believe that, something is our fault or something like this, then, when we are consistently reaffirming that belief with our thoughts and our feelings, then that's going to slow the release process down. So here's a little cue for you guys. If you want to figure out how to not slow the process, and, say your process is taking a long time, I want you to draw a triangle on a piece of paper. And in each corner of the triangle, you are going to write down first, you're going to write down the victim. Then on the other corner, you're going to write down the perpetrator. And then the other corner, you're going to write down the savior. And then you're going to list all the ways you feel right being a victim. Like you're convinced you're the victim of this. You're a victim of the medical community. You're a victim of the sick human society. You're a victim of the abuse of this world. You're a victim of the power dynamics of the dark lords of Saturn. Whatever you feel righteous as the victim of, list it out. Same thing as the perpetrator. Who do you feel ashamed? Like, what shame do you have about potentially being the perpetrator of? The worthiness program is usually comes in with this guilt and shame. So make a list of all the things you feel guilty about and shameful about. And then another list is all the times you stepped up to be the savior. You stepped up to save and help someone else. Or you see what I mean? Like why you do what you do. I once had a really, really talented healer come into my office when I had that office in Boulder. She was not only a medical doctor, she was also a holistic doctor. So she did like 12 years worth of study. She became a gifted speed reader, so she can do all these studies, and she was both. But she had a belief. She had a belief that her menstruation cycle was so painful because she bled for all the pain of the women around the world. Okay. And she was okay with that. She felt like that was her service to humanity. That's an example of being a savior. Okay. So it's the things that you do that you feel that is of service to the larger. And I don't mean things that benefit humanity. I'm saying sacrifices that you make for the betterment or for a cause or something like this. Anyway, you list all those things out that are each in those three corners, and you examine them and get to that place where you can step out of any one of those corners in the situation. And that's gonna help you release a lot of this density. The density that's causing the pain, that's causing the inflammation, that's causing the inability to eat or sleep, stuff like this. And right now we're in these times, it's trial by fire. It's trial by fire. The dress rehearsals ended a long time ago. It's like you do it or you're just gonna stay in pain. You do it or you're gonna hurt. Tough. That's how it is. I know it sucks, but it definitely gets us on our feet, doesn't it? It gets us really motivated when we know that it's not going to end until we face our crap. And it's all up to us to face our crap. Our ego drivers need to be willing to look at the stuff so we can have the maintained focus to look at what we need to look at so we can reveal what needs to get revealed inside. And like I said, we're not doing this by ourselves. So as long as you're doing your part, you're meeting your own self halfway, at least in this, then that concert of support is there for you with your personal process. And it's a concert of support. And that support can come it's from so many directions. From time to time I have, all right, so all right, let me step back for a second. I'm starting in the middle of the story. Let me step back for a second. So I'm in Appalachia. And this is in the early 16, 17, 1800s. This was Cherokee land. This was Cherokee territory. And matter of fact, talk about synchronicity, a dear brother Starshine whose family who's lived here for many generations came by yesterday and dropped off a map that was made in 1922 that mapped out all of the different villages that had all the different Indian villages Cherokee villages that existed in this county at that time. So there were still indigenous here in the 20s. Anyway, so I mean that to me that's a synchronicity. That's like an invitation to something, because I have been thinking about it because there's a stop off in the Trail of Tears. It's not far from here. I was thinking about doing some transmutation work, but I have to wait till I'm invited to do that. I don't just step in and do it, right? So recently there's been an indigenous grandmother coming and teaching me things. And one of the things that she told me, so there's things that she told me to touch on to help me with my integration so I can step into this other role. And one of the things she wanted me to do was to track a demon that she said was stalking me. And I'm like, oh, okay. know, and I did. And it took me deep into the underworlds. And I won't go much further into that story because there was a lot to it, but uh, the guidance that they were giving me was taking me to major facets that still needed worked on within myself. And that's what I'm getting to, is that when you are in the harmonics of the flow of the changes that are happening, what you need comes to you. What you need, what's important comes to you. You don't have to be busy reaching. You don't have to do that. When you are relaxed in your own flow and you're in your yes, that I'm going to show up for whatever is going to show up, that I need to look at, what I need to be aware of, whatever, then things just come to you, like that map, right? Like the knowledge of the Trail of Tears right here, like the grandmother that just started coming to me and helping me work out things that were important for me to work out in order for me to do whatever my next step is, right? And just recently, last night, a very interesting warrior came forward teaching me the warrior way. And he had a beautiful teaching about how a real warrior accepts defeat. And it was fascinating because if you think about it, think about any situation in your life where you were bested, where someone beat you at something, someone did it better, or you felt like you lost, right? Is that feeling like, oh, I'm so grateful? I mean, you might tell yourself you should be grateful because that's what the New Age movement tells you should be. But really, your true feeling about it, do you feel a smile inside when you go back to that moment? No, probably not, right? So, and what he was showing me was that there's a way to relate to defeat. There's a way to relate being bested that maintains your personal integrity, your personal dignity, okay? And that is bowing to the one that bested you and acknowledging that they were more deeply in their heart flow, in their capacity of their heart flow than you were in that moment. And when you do it like that, it gives you a cue where you can be like, oh, this, and this is what I was doing when I was interrupting my heart flow. This thought and this precaution and this measure that I was taking, or this stance that I was making, was actually me getting in the way of my own heart flow, my own natural flow with the rhythms that are around me. Now, I'm still digesting that teaching, so it may not come in as completely as congruent as often things do here, but that was really impressive. It's like when he showed me that, I felt like I was given a gift of gold. Like there's gold in what he just said there. So going back to what you need when you're willing to be just surrendered into the flow. I'm talking about the ego driver, surrendered into the flow of what you need to be doing. So that means you're not stopping the pain. You're not stopping the aversions. You're not choosing only light and not dark. You're not doing any of that. You're saying, I am facing everything I need to face in order to liberate myself and wake up to who I am as a quantum being in this body. Okay? When you are in that fully and you're committed, then exactly what you need comes to you. Why is that so? Because that's the way of Pachamama. That's the way of the feminine. The Pachamama gives us everything we need to thrive and to flourish. Okay? And this is a teaching also from the Kero, is that when you go through initiations in the masculine way, you go through a trial, you go through a tribulation, you defeat, you do whatever, you conquer, whatever it is you need to do, conquer your fears, whatever. And once you've done it, then they give you the initiation. You are now a warrior. Okay. But the feminine way of doing it is she already holds the container of the grand vision for your unfoldment in this life, in this timeline. And she gives you everything you need to succeed because she knows you'll do it. She knows you can do it. So it's about initiating you with all the gifts, all the tools, all the knowledge that you need when you need it to do what it is you need to do in the moment. Okay. That's why these things come. That's why things fall in one's lap when they need to. It's just our training makes us want to do. And that's just an imbalance. That's an insecurity. Okay. All right. Okay, so Felicia says, thanks for the list. And Joanne says, I so appreciate the concert of support provided by the Light Body Academy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Aw, thank you, darling. That's sweet. And that's true. I mean, it is an excellent community, very supportive community. Nobody, we don't have problems with people judging other people or anything like that. It's very accepting because everything and everywhere we are is exactly where we need to be. And we facilitate each other, and there's a gratitude, there's a gratefulness to facilitating each other, you know, in a way that has impeccability. Okay, so let me get on to the next thing I want to talk about. Let's see how much time I have. Okay. So I want to talk about exo-politics because I think this is something that, I mean, I touched on this before, but I want to go deeper into it because this is something that I think a lot of people have confusion over. And a lot of it is because of, you know, the worship and glorifying, the stuff that I call the God poison. Because something is of a higher dimensional frequency, because of how we are in relationship to those higher dimensional frequencies, we open up to extreme love and bliss in order to have conversations with beings at those levels. We kind of like associate them with being divine beings, God beings, angels, stuff like this. All right. And that's not an accurate depiction of the relationship. So how can I say that? So we need to keep in mind that these biosuits are creme de la creme. Even in their shutdown state, they're creme de la creme as far as a vehicle to embody consciousness. Okay? Our consciousness has the ability to activate DNA inside of us, to close down DNA inside of us. Our inner consciousness, the quantum that's imbuing this body, is the one in charge of our growth and how we exist. So if we exist closed down or opened up, it's all dependent upon the trajectory mapped out by the quantum inside. So that activates DNA. So the biosuit is extremely valuable, not only because of that experience it provides, but it's also extremely valuable because of the energy it creates. Now, there is a Mayan teaching, an ancient Mayan teaching, a Toltec teaching, that talks about the human biosuit's main purpose is to generate energy, is to be a quantum battery, so to speak. And there are actual group movements that they teach one to do to generate, to charge up the capacity of how much energy a biosuit can hold and maintain. So when you think about it like that, then you also realize, you know, all of the power over dynamics going on here, that there is a commodity, there is an entire economy based on life force energy. It's a commodity, guys, life force energy. And that's where the word luging comes from. Our luge feeds phantom beings, feeds beings that don't have their own quantum. Okay? And there are massive amount, uncountable amount of beings that are phantom beings that don't have their own quantum, that live off of the life force, the luge that humanity creates and leaves behind. So there's the creme de la creme luge, which is to be worshipped and glorified and give your sexual and orgasmic energy to. And then there's downgrades from there, right? And some of the bottom feeders are the ones that feed off fear and agony and pain. Okay, but still, nonetheless, they're feeding. We're still losing life force energy that becomes food. So when you look at this in a multidimensional way, higher dimensional conscious beings of consciousness may or may not have an interest in us waking up and reclaiming our sovereignty, Because what happens? We no longer become food. All of our quantum is now serves us in our purpose, in our reason for being here. You see? So not all higher dimensional beings are working in the interest of liberating humanity. For real. So who is and who's not, right? Well, it's about as clear as our human politics is, right? Who's right and who's wrong in our human politics? What politician is actually for the people, and what politicians are for the corporate media, or for the big corporations, or for deep state, or for their big donors? Who knows? All bets are off. Nobody can tell. Nobody can tell. Nobody can tell. So the exo-politics, it's just as confusing. It's not as clear as that. So this is why we get into our own sovereignty, okay? Because when we are in our own sovereignty, we will know what it is we want. And then we will engage with those higher dimensional beings with our own higher dimensional aspects, you see? And give that declaration of what it is we want in the direction we are choosing to go. And they can be in alignment with that or not, right? So that's really the picture that's getting painted here. Dear Shanu, I will get to that question because it's a great one. Okay, so let me get back to that. Let me finish this thought and I'll get back to that. So exo-politics. So you have beings like Ashtar Command. You have beings like the Guardian Alliance. You have beings like the Galactic Federation. You have the Intergalactic Federation. You have the Lyran Collective, right? You have the there's another council and I can't remember their name right now. Darn it. Okay, there's another high level council out there. You have the Zolkin, right? So you have all these different beings, collective of beings, coming to Earth, sending ambassadors to this planet. And you guys know who you are, the ambassadors, the Galactic Federation ambassadors, the Intergalactic Federation ambassadors, the Guardian Alliance ambassadors. Right now in the exo-political game, I said this before, but right now in the exo-political game, I feel my personal higher dimensional frequencies will and desire is more closely aligned with the Guardian Alliance. That may change if the Guardian Alliance shifts gears, so I'm not married to my affiliation by any means. And this is how one gets respect when you're traversing these interdimensional places. You are not worshiping and glorifying, bowing and humbling yourself before all these beings. You're holding them all accountable. You're holding them all in an equal place as your own inner light. And when they offer you guidance, like what I do is I let them know, I thank them for offering their guidance, and I let them know that I will take it into counsel. And then I reflect on it until my inner knowing gives me a response. Now, if my inner knowing stays blank and I'm not getting a hit either way, I'm going to shelve that recommendation. I'm going to shelve that guidance until it becomes relevant, if it becomes relevant. Okay. And that's not necessarily how a lot of people address higher dimensional beings. A lot of people address them with great, like I said, worship and glorifying. And that's not how a quantum being in a biosuit is in right relationship in the galactic planes and beyond, or even in the stellar networks. That's not right relationship in the stellar network. When you're coming to beings with that attitude, they know you're a slave, they know you're food, and they will treat you as such. Okay? All right, so dear Shanu says, how can we not become food? This is an excellent question. It's work, it's a journey. For number one, it's a journey. So as you reclaim your being, and more your quantum becomes integrated, you become more and more aware of other beings attached to you or pushing your buttons to get fed, stuff like this. And it'll be in dream time, but you'll also start to realize, like the vampires around you that are humans, you'll start to realize stuff like this. And how you get out of that dance. Well, number one, that disempowerment triangle that I just talked about earlier in this talk, make a list of all the roles you play where you feel justified being in one of those corners. And that's a good place to start. And you start getting straight inside of yourself. How do you exist in these roles that you're playing without being a victim, without being a perpetrator, and without playing the hero? How do you find right relationship within those roles, within those roles that you've listed? Okay, that is a great start to how to start reclaiming your sovereignty and not becoming food anymore. Because you're not leaking, because that's a leak of energy. That's a siphoning off of life force that happens with that. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing you can do, there's some tools and techniques, and we practice these tools and techniques on a regular basis in our foundations class, which is the first Sunday of the month. And actually, I'll start posting the link in our social media groups to register just for the foundations, because in foundations, we go over the tools and techniques and put into practice the tools and techniques of reclaiming your energy. So when you reclaim your energy, you're closing all the portals, all the windows and doors within your energy field that allows things in or allows you to give energy away. But then there's also reclaiming your quantum, so can't be taken advantage of by other beings. There's actually encrypting your DNA, so other beings can't tap into it and inform you on a subconscious level via tones or whatever. There's also how to reclaim your energy. A great practice that one can also do is when you're laying in bed at night, think about all the interactions you had online and in person throughout that entire day and reclaim your energy, all the energy from that day. Reclaim all the mental, emotional, spiritual energy that you may have lost that day. And also when you're doing that, the energy that you took on of other people will go back to them. I call that good energetic hygiene. That's a practice that you can adapt. So it's a journey, and there are tools and there are ways, but you just have to step into it and put it into practice. One other recommendation I'll say is quit making grounding cords that go to the core of the earth. Don't make grounding cords anymore. I know that goes completely opposite of what so many energy medicine people teach, but the reason why is because that comes from a truncated understanding. And the truncated understanding is that the core of the earth is not in your body. Okay, the core of the earth is actually somewhere away from you in the core, the physical core, but it's multidimensional just like you are. So the frequency of the core of the earth is in your body. It's in your body. So instead of making that grounding cord going through the telluric realms, going into the first dimension of the core, instead you take your heartbeat to your perineum, and then you open up the doorway to the frequency of the core that is inside your body. It's instantly grounding. It's instantly grounding. You become clearer, you become calmer. It's a way more effective practice, because the other thing that happens when you drop grounding cords through the telluric realm is that there's realms that it goes through where it's not so good. You shouldn't be going through those realms. It's an energy drain. Things can come in and siphon off life force out of that cord. So, but this is what I mean about new paradigm versus old paradigm. Things like that work until they don't. Like I used to make cords all the time. I would experiment with a tree trunk cord versus a blue light cord versus a purple light cord versus a black light cord. I mean, I tried every kind of cord there is, and they all felt very different. So, and at the same time, when there was a crisis happening and I needed to ground myself, it didn't do jack shit. It didn't do jack shit for my energy. And that's when I realized there's something wrong here. There's something not quite right. And it was because it wasn't a complete teaching. It was a truncated teaching. Once I figured out this thing about the core, the frequency of the core is inside of my body, it was a game changer. And this is why I include it in foundations. It's a huge game changer for folks. All right, dear Sister Beverly says, yes, no cording externally. Mic drop. I always felt something was wrong with that when I hear people say it. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, so those feelings that you get when you hear teachings, don't ignore those feelings. Again, that's the conversation I had with dear sister Starshine this morning. She always, 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 throughout history, historically, she never was successful at connecting with what were called chakras. Talking about the Vedic model of the chakras. She never was able to connect with that. And then she wakes up to a huge paradigm teaching, new paradigm aspect of who she is. And she realized, oh, it's because I am not interested in that paradigm at all. Right? It's like, because that's not part of her trajectory. That's why it was never really working for her. She was trying to work what was working for everybody else. And meantime, ignoring her own inner voice that was taking her in a completely different direction that nobody else was going. All right, dear sister Shanu, is walking barefoot on the ground okay? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Earthing is awesome because that is an energy exchange that's going on. The energy, the life force of the ground, of the grass, of the life force of the Pachamama, it has a direct conduit to work with you, to move through you, okay, through your channels. So you actually get your energy cleaned when you're walking barefoot through the forest or through a field. Okay, you're actually, all those pent up positive ions from electronics and stuff get discharged into the earth. You get replenished with lots of negative ions. And then, of course, there's the life force energy of the plant life itself. So absolutely, earthing is awesome. I highly recommend it. I love that practice, and I do it all the time. You see, I'm barefoot right now. All right, dear sister Laurel says, I feel like this goes along with the idea that we feel we are going into nature as opposed to being of nature. It's a part of us. Yes. 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 Thank you, Laurel. That's an excellent point. Exactly. We are nature. So in a lot of ways, we're just coming home. All right, dear Felicia, Felicia says, I stopped cutting cords in the early 90s. Ah, yes, awesome. Yes, and thank you, Shanu. Thank you for asking those great questions. All right, darlings, my time is up. Woo, these chats go by so quickly. All right. Well, I hope what we talked about is helpful, and this perspective is going to help you step more forward with more grace and ease in your life walk. I really appreciate you guys being here. Oh, young trick named Jim. Hey, man, sorry. You'll have to listen to the recording. All right, loves. I will see you next time. Oh, real quick before I go. I almost forgot. Beverly, if you're still here, if you can post the link to the information session, please. So we are launching our new Healer Acceleration Lab in October. It starts October 14th, and this is a 13-month facilitator series, and it also has modules. So you can take just modules, or you can do the whole 13 months. But the whole point of this is to help Starseeds, Wayshowers, step more deeply into their Wayshowership. So the first module is the skill sets necessary for being an energetic death doula. So it's recapitulation and death rites. It's a 2-month module. It starts in October. If you guys want to learn more about that, please check out the link that Beverly is going to post in the comments here of this video, and then you can claim your spot in that group call, and you can hear all about it and on how we're going to be offering that. And this is important work. This is, death rites is something that I learned in the old paradigm, but it's never lost its value. It's never lost its relevance because it's such a potent practice to help liberate a loved one that's passing. Okay. All right. Thank you, Beverly. All right, darlings, that's it for me. Mwah. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.